Hello, everybody. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about how Ayurveda helped me to reset my nervous system. So, just a little bit of a backstory. In 2020, I had a traumatic event happen that gave me PTSD. It took me about a year to realize that that's what had happened. And then on top of that, I had another stressful situation that kept coming up that was just adding to the PTSD. So my nervous system was in a state of anxiety and panic like all the time. And I never knew what that felt like to almost feels like you're out of control because your nervous system is, well, it's your autonomic nervous system, so it's just an automatic response and you don't really have a ton of control. And there are things you can do like breath work and yoga and walking and things like that that can help. But a lot of it's just kind of beyond your control. And if you get into a place where you're in that like panic mode and you've gone back to the trauma, and it can be really hard to get to a place where you feel like you can function. And I was actually at a place for a while where if it would happen to me while I was at work, it was hard to work. I'm a bartender, and so sometimes I would forget if I'd even taken someone's order or not because your brain just is not working normal, and it would be so stressful if it would happen to me there. And it was really hard to explain to people like what was going on. And so if you have PTSD, I can totally empathize. And before I had the PTSD, I honestly thought that a lot of that stuff was in people's head. But then once you experience it, you realize how much of it is beyond your control in that present moment. But there are things you can do to get yourself back into a better place. But like I said, I actually did a lot of things like yoga, meditating, group therapy, going to a therapist, an individual therapist. And so I kind of threw the whole kitchen sink at the problem, but it wasn't until, those things all helped, but it wasn't until I started to do Ayurveda on a regular basis that I was able to actually completely heal my nervous system to the point where I would actually find myself in a deep, relaxed state far more often than I was feeling stressed out and anxious. And that was a big shift for me where my baseline got way more relaxed. And so I'm going to share with you why I think Ayurveda helps so much, but I'm open to also like those other modalities were a big part of my healing as well. So anyway, when I started to do Ayurveda, I started with a cleanse. And after I did the cleanse, my digestive system felt like it was starting to renew itself. And it was the first time I had really felt like empty, like I had pushed out all my food. And so when I came back to eating, it felt really good. I loved the cleanse. I couldn't wait to do the next one in the spring. I signed up for Ayurveda school because I was like, this is awesome and I freaking love it. And I'd actually studied Ayurveda for a while through other sources, and I've been doing yoga I've been practicing yoga I've been teaching yoga for over 10 years. And so Ayurveda has been in and out of all of my like yoga teacher trainings and stuff like that. So, and then I also studied Vedic astrology, which was also all about Ayurveda. So anyway, Ayurveda was the obvious next step for me. And so I signed up for the classes, and it was after I started to implement all of the daily routines. What happened was my body started, for the first time, I had a routine. I never have been the type of person to like do the same thing every day. And I've always actually been the type of person to like forget to eat or forget that I was doing that or forget. Like I don't have like a clear focus or direction. And when I started doing Ayurveda, it gave me like very clear steps on how to start my day. And I started with just a small few things like tongue scraping. And then added lemon water before my coffee. And then I started a meditation routine a while back, but that's a big part of like grounding my morning. But it's really like the little things like tongue scraping and the abhyanga, like rubbing oil on my body and just like doing these things at the same time every day. Oh, and I never skip breakfast anymore. Like I eat by 10 a.m. I try to eat earlier because that's a better time to eat, but I don't skip breakfast anymore. I don't forget breakfast. Big deal. Anyway, and then I do my abhyanga and I try to eat a big lunch around noon. This is when you can kind of splurge. So it's a good time to have a little bit heavier food if that's what you're feeling. And that's also kind of good when you're like about to, like me, having a little bit of a heavier meal in the middle of the day can be really grounding so that you don't feel so like nervous energy coming in. And so actually eating properly at the right times of the day is huge on regulating the nervous system. And then the abhyanga, like the oil, has been huge on my nervous system at night, or like rubbing my feet with oil, and just helps me be able to let go better and get a better night's rest. And so, yeah, ever since I started my Ayurveda practice and healing my digestion and having these like anchors throughout the day, that is really when my nervous system started to regulate. And so there's a lot of things you can do that will help you heal and get the nervous system into a better space. And there's a lot of things you can do if you're like in an anxiety ridden space to begin with. So there's so many tools in the toolbox, but Ayurveda was actually the one thing that was able to help me get into a more relaxed state more often through the process of rituals and routines and Agni, which is your digestive fire. So healing that digestive fire is also another one of the key elements, in all of the abhyanga morning routines and nighttime routines are actually really good for your digestive fire, and that's part of how we heal our digestion. So it's all connected. Anyway, I'd love to hear about how your nervous system is, if you feel like it's out of whack, if it needs to be regulated, if you've ever tried Ayurveda for that, or like what you've actually tried that's helped cure PTSD or regulate the nervous system. And I look forward to reading your comments.